The average pleb needs to know that you're up against everybody now. You're up against Sailor, you're up against the US trying to create their SBR. You're up against Bitcoin bonds, you're up against Bit bonds, you're up against, pretty much everybody. And you're fighting for sats against nation states because they're already buying and mining it. And now it's just going to accelerate and it's going to drive up demand massively. So that's the thing you have to know. That's the biggest takeaway. You have to stack like there's no tomorrow.
Right now, Bitcoin is sitting generally in the plebs' hands. The plebs have been able to front run everything. It's still in, basically private, hands, and it's very little in nation states or big entities. Going forward, though, this, like you just alluded to, is what made me think of it, will change over time. But is that, and people might look at that as a bad thing, but to get paid in Bitcoin, say it's 10, 20, 30 years from now, getting paid in Bitcoin, naturally, those businesses, those producers of society are going to have to accrue more Bitcoin. You're going to be fighting against them. And that's why this is important going forward, like you said. But doesn't that kind of have to happen? Isn't this inevitable that will happen? And then all of a sudden, people working for Bitcoin, that'll happen because those entities have the Bitcoin and they will start paying their, again, the employee has to ask for it too, but they will have the Bitcoin, so they will be able to pay their employees in Bitcoin. Isn't that how this is how it comes about in a larger part, right?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, eventually people will demand to be paid in Bitcoin because, their suppliers, like the grocery store or department store, whatever, will want Bitcoin too. So it's just like an amplification of demand from all parts of society that want Bitcoin. So eventually you working for a company will have to ask the company, like, pay me in Bitcoin because I can't buy groceries with this paper anymore. But hyper-Bitcoinization, depends on how you define it, but I define it as the point at which you no longer need to convert Bitcoin to fiat anymore. You can just live on a Bitcoin standard and earn sats and spend sats. But I believe it's coming faster than most people would expect because these types of changes in money, in the base money that everyone uses, are very quick changes. It's not a slow, gradual progression where, in 2 years, maybe we'll be at 20%. And then another 2 years, we'll be at 40%. It's quite exponential because when most people stop wanting the fiat, then everyone stops wanting the fiat because it's like a race against time to get rid of the fiat and get into something harder, which is Bitcoin.
Will we look at this time period right now as the next Bretton Woods? Like, I know there's not a conference going on. They got BRICS things going on, but America creating the SBR and trying to, really looks like revalue the dollar over time here against hard assets like gold, like Bitcoin. Is that what we're going to see? Is it going to be obvious, a couple decades from now when we look back?
Possibly, but I think it's probably bigger than something like Bretton Woods. I would say we'll look back at the period up till 1971 as the monetary dark ages, this period of time in which nothing really made sense. Because if you think about it, when we went off the gold standard, all of a sudden, this paper that was designed to represent gold, it's a IOU for gold, suddenly was disconnected. And you could now take this paper and whoever can print the paper can make more of it to buy back that asset that was supposed to be represented by that paper. So it's like bizarro world. Nothing really makes sense anymore because you have a relatively finite hard asset in gold, and you have, a representation of that asset in terms of paper or digital paper, whatever you want to call that. And now this can buy all of this. So, if you really think about it and you sleep on it and you mull it over, it's like wacko that suddenly this valuable thing can be bought by this worthless thing. And this is sort of the conclusion of that experiment. And I think we'll look back and in 50 or 60 years, historians will look back and say, wow, I can't believe we were so primitive that we were led to believe that, this piece of paper had value. And that's sort of the realization, the look at it. Not, it's like Bretton Woods type, we agreed to do something, but it's just, we were all insane for decades using paper.
How do you get someone to, because it's the old like sales adages of like, how do you incept something into someone's brain, or how do you get them to understand or want something that you want while making them feel like they're the ones that it's their idea? And so we talked about Joe Rogan. Like, why won't he have you on his show? Like, why won't he have Sailor on? Like, why is it so hard to get people to talk about money and understand that's the incentives? Like, it feels like to me that most humans want to complain about things. They don't really want the answers. They want to just like fight red versus blue politics, because it seems so obvious. There's so many of us screaming at these people now with easy technology. They can see it. Like, they know, but it seems like, is it subconscious that humans like don't want the answer? Or like many humans don't want the answer, and because they're scared of the playing field being leveled, or like this is just fascinating to me. And we're kind of griping at each other, offline, albeit the same direction, but we're both like just frustrated. Like, it's just, I'm frustrated. You're frustrated. I think a lot of people are frustrated in the sense that, why is it so hard to understand? And it goes back to the altcoin thing, but why is it so hard for people to understand? I don't know if it's subconscious or conscious, that the money is broken and it's destroying 90% of the things in your life. And we just want to bitch about everything that's downstream of the money being broken. I don't know, Samson. I'm lost.
Because if you well, you kind of alluded to it, but if you give them the solution, then you just have to make some hard adjustments in your life, and that's it, right? There's not that much to talk about. We had a call with some people working in a country that is possibly right for Bitcoin nation state adoption, and they were telling me, like, this is a problem here, this is a problem, and this is a problem, and I'm like, well, just Bitcoin can fix all of those things, right? So the solution is so simple. And maybe it goes back to what I was saying earlier. Like, it's so simple, people just don't want to acknowledge that it is that simple, that the money is broken, and that's it. But as to why Joe Rogan doesn't get another Bitcoiner on, I think he had Antonopoulos on at some point. But I don't really know. Maybe we're just really bad at getting on Rogan. Like, I always see him tagged, and people suggest, Sailor should go on, Adam Back should go on, and even me. But, he never reacts. So maybe we just have to direct our efforts better to get somebody on. But yeah, it's not a hard problem to solve, because I think any of us could make an excellent guest and talk about all these things. And I don't think it's a conspiracy from his part that he doesn't want to get the solution. But, there's always a hotter topic that will generate more views than the money is broken, unfortunately for us. But, once people are interested in Bitcoin, I think it's really hard to look at anything else and think that, well, yeah, I can ignore the money and we can just talk about these other problems, because, that's like kind of where we are at. We see everything every problem going back to the root cause of the money being broken. And that's all we think about. At least I think so.
As Bitcoiners, how do we talk better, I guess? How do we become more persuasive and get that truth? It feels like, well, truth is truth, so it's going to fix itself. But how do we become better at articulating that to the average person, and then even to a Joe Rogan, so we can get that truth out there?
If you want the answer to that question right there, and you like that spicy clip, check it out here. Come on, we'll see you in there. But if you want the full interview in its entirety, all the spicy clips put together, and you're not going to want to miss it, believe me, then check that out here. Come on, we'll see you in there. Do it.